The Himalayan Future Forum, this is our second meet. We're happy guidance we receive and doing them through multiple lenses. And today we are going to talk about through digital technology. So we are Nigit Payan from Takshila, Bangalore would be talking about that. We are going to talk about preserving and harnessing indigenous knowledge. There's a session on preserving lost languages. We are talking about resilience and need more. And third is connectivity. And when we are talking about connectivity, for us, people to people connectivity comes at the fore. When we hosted the 2024 Himalayan Future Forum, then we were going to host the 2025 forum, and then we were requested by the government to move it to for the Sagarmatha Samvad to take place. Professor Mahendra Lama, who is here, was the architect behind creating the concept of Sagarmatha Samvad, which the government of Nepal hosted, and that will remain a government-to-government platform, and we would continue to be a people-to-people platform. In these 2 days, we are going to traverse a lot of issues, and many thought leaders are here across 8 sessions. And as I said, I'm a glorified timekeeper. The timer is there for all the speakers to look at, and so that we begin on time and end on time. At Himalaya Future Forum 2024, all were here. We try to ensure that we use very minimum plastic. So you see from our 10 cards, which are recycled, we keep on pasting names to all our IDs, and all the work we do is all we try to make it digital. The art is curated by Swasti Kasaraj Mandari, who's brought in artists, and the main theme today is an art that talks about, the lack of open space in Pokhara. As more buildings are coming up, the chowdhuries or the resting places are vanishing. That's an Isan Bariyar art we have put up. And we are also, the Himalaya Future Forum is known for having the youth fellows, and this time we have 25 youth fellows who are selected from an overwhelming number of participants. And they are also going to be getting a full scholarship with the Takshila Foundation for a public policy program. Thank you, Gideon, for making that happen. Uh, we also have this time in terms of partnership with Nepali Times as our media partner, the English language content platform, and they have been our media partner for this. And to pull this event through, there are a lot of people I need to thank, and definitely GIZ Grade 2 has been our main sponsor, Himalaya Everest Insurance. The boards you see at the back, it is made from plastic. It is by Reclaim Nepal that is being operating in Simra. We have ISS. We have some of our supporters who have been buying tables and helping us to raise a bit of money for this to happen. Just before I call on our opening speakers, I would like to, sort of make few announcements. There are emergency exits that are there, so in case any incidents that happen, there's medical on call, and also there's a team at the reception that would help you if you have any questions. We have stalls outside showcasing artists and books. And tomorrow we have the Himalayan Art at the International Club. Do join in. We are showcasing some Himalayan products and services. This will be starting at 10 o'clock in the morning. So with that, a big round of applause for our speakers who have traveled from around the world, all the speakers from Nepal, and all of you who have joined it. And may I now, with that, have our opening speaker, Ambassador Veronique Lorenzo, to make her remarks, and we have 10 minutes. Oh, 12, okay.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear speakers and panelists, and of course a special welcome to the Youth Fellow who join us today. Namaste, good morning. And it's a real pleasure for me to be here to open the Himalayan Future Forum 2026. And thank you to the Nepal Economic Forum for convening this platform once again and for bringing together such a diverse and thoughtful group of voices. Over the next two days, you will engage with issues not only critical for the Himalayan region, but also increasingly central to regional and global stability. The Himalayas are often described as remote or peripheral, but we're now realizing that they're strategic to climate outcomes, to economic connectivity, and to security considerations in Asia and beyond. From the European Union's perspective, this region matters not only because it's vulnerable, but because what happens here will define patterns of cooperation, stability, and resilience for decades ahead. Let me share some reflections to frame your discussions around the forum's three themes, climate, community, and connectivity, and position them within today's evolving geopolitical and security context. We're living through a period of accelerated geopolitical change. I'm sure you've heard this many times in the past few months. The challenges to the international order have spurred a reshaping of trade relations, a redefinition of strategic partnerships, and this at a time when global challenges and climate change, foremost among them, require deeper cooperation. Just last week, the European Union and India took a significant step in that direction with the completion of the free trade agreement and a defense and security partnership agreement. And this really marks a new phase in EU-India partnership that links economic integration, strategic trust, and shared responsibility for regional and global stability. Why does that matter for the Himalayan region? Because deeper EU-India economic and security cooperation inevitably brings greater attention to the spaces that connect us. The Himalayas sit at the heart of this evolving relationship as a climate hotspot, as a corridor of connectivity, and as a region where stability or instability has far-reaching implications. The European Union also engages with China on global public goods, including climate action. And while we have differences, the cooperation remains essential, especially in regions where shared risks such as climate change transcend borders. The Himalayas therefore sit at the intersection of major geopolitical relationships. They're no longer shaped only by domestic or environmental factors. They're increasingly part of the strategic equation. Fora like the Himalaya Future Forum allow regional perspectives, evidence, lived realities to inform the larger geopolitical and security conversations. And this before crisis force decisions under pressure. Let me turn to climate. Today's program will notably explore disasters, insurance mechanisms, intergovernmental coordination, and these are essential discussions. Everybody knows the Himalayan region is warming faster than the global average. Glacial retreat, extreme weather events, floods, landslides, and droughts are becoming more frequent and more severe. But climate change in the Himalayas is no longer only an environmental or development issue. It's increasingly a security issue. Water variability affects agriculture, hydropower, urban supply. Disasters strain governments' capacity and public trust. Competition over land, water, energy can amplify social and political tensions within countries and across borders. In the Himalayas, water security is conflict prevention. When rivers are governed cooperatively and transparently, they become sources of stability rather than triggers of tension. From the European Union's perspective, climate action is therefore also about conflict prevention and long-term stability. In Nepal and across the region, the EU support spans climate adaptation, disaster risk reduction, biodiversity protection, and renewable energy. And these efforts are not just projects, they really seek to strengthen institutions, to reduce vulnerability, and to help societies withstand shocks. At the same time, global climate governance is changing. Traditional aid-based models are gradually giving way to approaches, different approaches, centered on investment, markets, and partnerships. And this shift also creates opportunities for the Himalayan region, particularly in the area of carbon markets and carbon credits. The EU-supported GREAT project, which is part of this forum, reflects this transition. And the logic is quite simple. If Himalayan communities are protecting forests, restoring ecosystems, and managing landscapes sustainably, they should have access to global climate finance, credibly, transparently, and at scale. Well-designed carbon mechanisms can support livelihoods, attract investment, and strengthen environmental government. But poorly designed ones can undermine trust and equity. And this is why strong institution safeguards and informed dialogue are essential, and why discussions at this forum are so timely. On community, climate change ultimately affects people, of course, and it is at the community level that security is either reinforced or eroded. Across the Himalayas, climate stress intersects with limited economic opportunity, unequal access to service, and demographic change. And these pressures are reshaping livelihoods and social structures. And one of the most significant consequences is migration and displacement. Climate-induced displacement is likely to become one of the defining global challenges of the century, larger in scale than anything we've faced before. In the Himalayan context, we see this with the rural to urban migration and international labor migration. And Nepal's migration story increasingly has a European dimension. Nepali citizens are present in Europe as workers, as students, as entrepreneurs, as contributors to our societies, and this creates shared responsibilities, but it also creates opportunities. Migration has a clear security dimension, but it also has an economic and social reality that must be managed rather than feared. And from the EU's perspective, the challenge, of course, is to ensure that mobility pathways are safe, legal, dignified, but equally important is to address the root causes through climate adaptation and local economic opportunity. And this development at local level must be people-centered. Growth without inclusion breeds instability. And in this development, empowering women and youth is particularly crucial. Women play a central role in managing natural resources, sustaining livelihoods, preserving cultural traditions. Young people bring innovation, energy, new perspectives. Investing in their education, skills, and leadership is not just a social priority. It's an economic and political necessity. And this is why it's also important for the youth fellows to be at this forum. Community resilience is also linked to local economies. Strengthening local value chains, supporting small and medium enterprises, promoting sustainable tourism, and adding value to local products can create jobs and preserve at the same time cultural identity. I'm so pleased the forum's second day will feature the Himalayan hat, showcasing products, food, art from across the region. It's a powerful reminder that culture and creativity are not side issues, but really central pillars of sustainable development. Connectivity is the third pillar, and I would say the most sensitive. Infrastructure and connectivity are essential. They can unlock opportunity, reduce isolation, integrate markets, but in fragile mountain ecosystems and complex geopolitical environments, they also carry strategic and security implications. Poorly planned infrastructure can increase disaster risk, environmental degradation, financial vulnerability, and ultimately create political tension. Connectivity is not neutral. It has to be designed very carefully. And this is why the European Union promotes high-quality, sustainable connectivity through our global gateway investments. Our focus is on transparency, environmental and social standards, financial sustainability, and local benefit. Because connectivity must serve people, not create new dependencies. Digital connectivity deserves particular attention. For remote communities, digital can transform the access to education, to healthcare, to finance, to markets. But digital inclusion requires investment in skills and governance so that technology narrows the gap rather than widening it. Connectivity is also about people-to-people ties, as Suchiv mentioned, academic exchanges, research partnerships, tourism, cultural cooperation. All these build trust. And this is the most precious resource in an uncertain world. And again, let me repeat this. Development finance is evolving. Trade and investment is increasingly replacing traditional aid. And in this context, it makes governance, predictability, and regional cooperation more important than ever. So, dear friends, colleagues, the Himalayas matter, not because they're vulnerable, but because they're central to climate security, to human security, and increasingly central to regional stability. Over the next 2 days, I hope your conversations move beyond diagnosing problems towards identifying new mechanisms, new partnerships, and new ways of managing shared risks. And from the European Union's perspective, partnership is the guiding principle. We come not with ready-made answers, but with a commitment to listen, to learn, and to act together. I wish you thoughtful discussions and meaningful outcomes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Barini. Just to take two things from what she said. Uh, Definitely, I think Nepal and the Himalayas would benefit with the agreements that have been signed between EU and India, and the agreements between EU and China. And we should be able to take advantage the Himalayan region, which is also part of these two countries and also the region in between. And we have been, Ambassador Tariq Karim and I, we are senior fellows at the National in Singapore Institute of South Asia Studies, which is a partner for the Himalayan Future Forum. And this is something that we will be working on. And during this year, there would be an event that we are going to bring in thought leaders to discuss this issue, and especially from a perspective of the changing world and how the changes within the neighborhood would impact the Himalayan region. The second is on migration. Definitely, this is a key thing for the Himalaya Future Forum, as we see that the displacements that will be caused by climate change would bring in migration of an unprecedented scale. And at the same time, we are seeing migration as a way of life. And with the Nepal Economic Forum, through our Nepal of the World program and the Global Nepali Network, we've been working along with the Himalaya Future Forum on this platform. Just a couple of people we have missed recognizing. So the tables you see here is courtesy Gallery 108 that has been continuously being our partner for the Himalaya Future forum. So with that, I would now request our advisory board member, Professor Mahendra Lama, to make his opening remarks. And he and I, we've been traveling across the Himalayas quite a bit also. We were in Darjeeling, we were in Sikkim in September, and we see also all the changes that are taking place, some good and some not so good. And he will talk more about it. And thank you for continuously guiding us. Over to you, Professor.
Well, thank you very much. Namaskar. Your Excellencies, very distinguished board members of the Himalayan Future Forum, distinguished guests and friends. I'm going to basically discuss about what Himalayan Future Forum stands for, particularly on three critical themes of connectivity, climate change, and community. So let me speak briefly about what we think about the impact of climate change, or where do we stand in the climate change global debate. Whenever climate change debate enlivens and consequences emerge, the people in the mountains increasingly feel that they have entered into a threatening triangular trap. So we call it triple T's. The first trap is the mountains are the water towers that also determine the causes and ferocity of monsoon. We are the custodians of biodiversity hotspots and traditional medicinal systems. We have the mountain ports that so neatly integrated pilgrimage, trade, cooperation integrations from valleys to valleys. And far away from the global regimes and regulatory norms of the UN, WTO, IMF, World Bank, and even North-South negotiations and dialogues. Our communities are reservoirs of knowledge, wisdom, and day-to-day practices. The mountain communities make significantly insignificant contributions to the climate change causes. Yet the mountain geographies are the most adversely affected ones. The gains emanating from climate change are far likely to be offset by the losses. We are the first victim to bear the brunt. However, we remain deprioritized entities to be recognized first and the last to get measures in terms of relief, recovery, prevention, and sustenance. For us, these are local miseries and devastations triggered by vicious global interventions and practices, and enigmatic situations of local misery versus global prosperity, and a local geometric trap that requires a global general equilibrium outreach and redress. How do we bring this local discourse to the national and global levels? This sordid story and narrative have to be intensely internationalized by national institutions and regional organizations like SAARC, ICIMOD, BIMSTEC, multilateral agencies, and of course what Ambassador Veronique rightly mentioned about Partnership of European Union. The 14th SAARC summit held in New Delhi in 2007 adopted the SAARC declarations on climate change, reflecting the collective vision of South Asia, and was presented in the UNFCCC meeting at Bali in 2007. The core theme of the 16th SAARC summit in Thimphu in 2010 was climate change and climate institutions. All these have remained in papers. All these initiatives have to put into action now. Himalayan Future Forum aims to galvanize these endeavors for larger good. A major part of today's deliberation is all about it. The second trap, despite new variety of threats and formidable zones of vulnerability, the mountain communities have demonstrated immense degree of resilience. While the global world is striving for last 4 decades on issues of carbon trading and climate funds, the mountain communities have silently and innovatively contributed to the adaptation processes and practices. Who will capture these phenomenon and organic practices? Who will globalize these local knowledge and resources? Does it not require existing local and global institutions to collaborate in this reverse globalization process? HFF would like to push this agenda to the forefront at the national, regional, and global level. And the third trap, Tesla to 5Gs, Microsoft to Korea's K-pop and BTS, French Wise to Levi's jeans, McDonald's to Instagram, have all invaded and overwhelmed the mountain geographies in the name of localization of globals. Technology is core to this. On the one hand, what has not reached is the highly complex and technical interconnections and knowledge permutations about how science, development, technology, and climate change actually interact. This is yet to reach, this knowledge is yet to reach lock, stock, and barrel in the simple, assimilable vernaculars and dialects to the mountain communities. There's a huge knowledge monopoly, imposed technological laggardness, and protracted marginalization of mountain communities, both within a country and in the global world. These artificially constructed barriers have to be demolished, reimagined, and rebuilt. This frightening isolation and increasing knowledge and technology sharing gap is bringing unprecedented national and human insecurity in the mountain lands, thereby instability in the region. HFF would really like to enliven this debate. Please allow me to make some more observations on what, where, how, and why we could juxtapose climate change in the mountain areas. Across the mountains and the foothills, we have witnessed strong correlations between climate change and unusual and never recorded incidents. Springs are drying up. Mulfutnu is vanishing. Mulfutnu is something like water gushing out of the grounds immediately after the monsoon, right? This has stopped. And the entire drinking water process, Mulfutnu and drinking water, the links have been disconnected. Hydrological and environmental river flows are behaving abnormally, indicating burgeoning dislocations in transboundary water sharing matrices. We have seen what is happening around. This has injected formidable challenge to orthodox hydrodiplomacy institutions. Forest fires are rampant. Uttarakhand state in India recorded highest active forest fires during 1st to 13th January. It was 123 in 2013 and increased to 870 in 2024. For a survey of India found that this year it even affected Valley of Flowers and National Park Range there in Uttarakhand. Unlike the perfect and predictable 6 distinct seasons, Basanta, Spring, Grishma, Summer, Barsha, Monsoon, Sharad, Autumn, Hemant, Pre-Winter, and Shishir, Winter, we have come down to 4 intermingled and confused seasons today. So the rhododendrons and magnolias that blossomed in March and April are now blooming in January and February. Winters are unusually warm. The State Center on Climate Change in Himachal Pradesh recently found that total snowfall area in Himachal Pradesh shrank from 20,000 plus square kilometers in 2018-19 to 17,437 square kilometers 23-24, a decline of almost 14%. The most visible adverse impact is on the apple farming, which has already shifted by over 1,000 feet upwards. In many places like in Mandi and Kulu, the very famous Royal Delicious and Red Delicious apple bells are literally vanished. I have not used my knee-long overcoats presented my father for the last 2 decades now. No winter rains at all in Arunachal Pradesh. Man-animal conflicts are a big hazard. Bhutan has already initiated national human-wildlife conflict management strategy for 2018 and 28. This shows the intensity of the problems. Zoonotic diseases are now widely seen. Prey-predators relations remain threatened. Genetic erosion is just frightening. National security forces are grappling in the borderlands. The communities are migrating once fertile agricultural lands are abandoned. In Sikkim, total fertility rates have gone down to as low as 1.1 children per woman, according to the latest National Family Health Survey. This rate is significantly below the national replacement level of 2.1. This could be a faint signal to the entire Himalayan community of a saturation milestone of no humans in the geographies. Disasters triggered by frequent cloudbursts and flash floods in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Jammu and Kashmir, glacial lake outburst flood in vicinities of eastern Himalayas in Bhutan, Nepal, and India have demonstrated that the responses need to be scientifically and physically coordinated, comprehensive and constant at local, national, and regional level. The October 2023 GLOF now is also referred as vertical tsunami, caused by unprecedented spillover due to massive calving of South Lonak Lake in North Sikkim, occurred in October 2023, and that raised the water levels of Tista River 50 to 20 meters within a couple of hours. And this flood led to heavy losses of human and animal lives, tourism's 33 bridges, right? And we calculated that we lost almost 25,000 crore of goods and services, almost 60% of gross domestic product of Sikkim. And I've been a witness to the entire process of what really happened and how we are going to manage it. There are 320 glacial lakes in Sikkim Himalayas, though they are not Thawaites Glacier, often called the Doomsday Glacier of the Antarctica. At least 10 of them are identified as vulnerable to the now frequently seen phenomenon of GLOF. The National Center for Hydrology and Meteorology in Bhutan and ICIMOD in Nepal have recorded scores of GLOFs. The image of GLOF that affected Miteri Breeze at Rasua in Nepal-China border last year is still afresh, so very well captured by Nepali Times, spearheaded by a very good friend of ours, Kunda Dixitju and his team. Angshiring Sherpa, the famous mountaineer of Nepal, recently said, I quote him, he says, as a young boy in the 1960s, I used to play with my friends beneath the shadow of Mount Everest as our yaks grazed just above the place called Chukhung. Today, my playground is the largest threat to our people, Imja Lake. In front of my very eyes, my playground turned into a small pond, and now it is massive lake, 3.5 kilometers long, more than 1.5 kilometers wide, and 149 meters deep. Imja is only one of many glacial lakes that has formed across the Himalayan mountains in my lifetime. So this is the account of what is happening in the Himalayas. In India, the National Disaster Management Authority has recently set up National Gulf Risk Mitigation. That was to a large extent when we said that this is a critical phenomenon in the Himalayan regions. And this is to assess, monitor, and mitigating risks for 195 high-risk glacial lakes across the Himalayas. The 16th Finance Commission in India just submitted its report, and where it again highlights what are the disaster-like situations in the country. Let me briefly deal with connectivity. Most of the geographies in the Himalayas are landlocked. Therefore, the land borders are very critical, and borderlands have emerged as the core theaters of integration, cooperation, and stability. Unlike the sea and air borders, air routes, the exchange, interactions, and cooperation, and even confrontation and conflicts in the land frontiers are eye to eye, face to face, 24 hours, and very, very direct. Atinai paroksa. Land borders could be physically seen, touched, smelled, crossed, and handled. In one of our recent study done for UNESCAP, we have developed VWTE concept to distinguish land borders from air and sea borders. The 4 variables like visibility, walkability, tangibility, and exchangeability, VWT, remain the distinguishing features of the land borders. This is so very critical for us because we are one geography in the world where you have varieties of borders. No particular zone or geography in the world will have this many varieties of borders. You name an open border, a fenced border, a barbed wire border, a natural border, right? You name any one of them. Dauki, that connects Bangladesh with Meghalaya. The borders is basically the snack sellers. Nepal, one pillar is the border, other side of the pillar is Nepal, this side is India. Myanmar, when I go there, the border is just one signboard. China, notional, no clear demarcations. So would you like to continue with border as a geometric line concept, thereby bringing only the national security context, orthodox national security context of border, or you would like to enlarge and widen the debate about border to borderland, which is full of opportunities? Because there you have tourism, conflicts, natural resources, culture, food, energy, all interacting at one go. And these borders in the mountain regions, except the nuclear war, as Her Excellency was mentioning, that you have all varieties of conflicts. You name any conflict in the world, Second World War, to liberation movement in Bangladesh, to Naxalites movements on the borderlands, to Maoist movement, to Sino-India war, right? You name any conflicts in the world, you will get these conflicts within 300 to 800 kilometers. And that's why we have set up the School of Peace, Conflict and Human Security in the university in Sikkim. Connectivity, therefore, is the key instrument of understanding, developing, and integrating the Himalayan regions. Oh. So, India has now adopted transforming approaches. Unlike in the past, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has propagated the idea of border villages, the first village, with vibrant village programs in the borderlands starting 2023. So we have 4x3 matrix. 4 critical economic corridors and 3 cascading domino effects. Nathula, we opened it right in 2006 between Sikkim and Tibet, which was closed in 1962. And this is how we have converted a hard border into a soft border and geopolitics to geoeconomics. Then you have a famous quadrilateral junctions down below, Fulbari corridor, where Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and India would meet. Right, this corridor was reopened in 1997 by Prime Minister Gujarat. I happened to be in his team when he visited Nepal. And now this is the most critical corridor. Nepalese, Bhutanese Indians can go down to Bangladesh and harness the Matarbari port, deep sea port, being managed or built by the Japanese. India can use this particular corridor as an additional access point to the northeast part of India, right? And if the opportunities are enlivened, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Bhutan can join Indian, corridors through the India-Myanmar Thailand trilateral highway under India's Act East policy, and it can be used as a kind of energy corridor. We are doing the Chao-Vanjang beautiful corridor road between Sikkim, West Sikkim, and Nepal. And this is where conflict will move to cooperation to integration, and dependence will move to interdependence. This is the beauty of borderlands. My 3 minutes, please. Give me 3 minutes to just say something about the communities. The entire discourse and development dynamics, the central entities, community in the mountain areas, and they must be the first and the last concerns, because they are the first line and insurmountable fortress of national security too. When I was a primary school student, I used to read a beautiful poem known as Ekais Dinma Challa Karda Hami Ramaucho. That means we get elated when mountain fowls and hens deliver baby chicks on the 21st day of hatching. The organic hatching is invariably shortened today or staggered today. Who will do scientific observations of this community livelihood dislocations? The world-famous Darjeeling tea industry developed with the ragat, pasina, and asu, blood, sweat, and tears of the communities there, are sick today. The climate change impact is very visible. The merchant capitalists are working hard to do the final milking and extraction in this tea industry. It's a very, very, devastating situations. We are striving to get the World Heritage status for this 170 years old industry, along with the 160-year-old Sincona plantation that protected and saved millions of people around the world from malaria. Himalayan Future Forum is poised to be a platform where we could discuss and deliberate on all these concerns. The informal institutions and organic practices are so very critical. When there is a river rise in Kolongchu, in eastern Bhutan of Trasi Yangtze and Trasigang districts, the communities alert the downstream communities in Assam, saying that, hey, be careful. The animals in Bhutan whistle to the animals in Manas Game Sanctuary in Assam, saying that, be careful. This is the community-to-community linkages. There is no government. There is no formal arrangement. There are no formal institutions. Therefore, let me sum up my interventions today by putting together reminiscences of my village in Darjeeling. Let me cite my own experience, how much we learned from our own surroundings and communities. Day-to-day social and religious practices have so much to do with the conservation of heritage and nature. When we were children, we drew water from a dhara, natural spring, at Chilao Nedhura, Longview Tea Estate in Darjeeling. All the villagers were literally prohibited to climb over to the area where the spring water actually originated. We are told that it is a Devithan, an abode of gods and goddesses, so one could not go up at all and do anything that will dirty and pollute the area and disturb the plants and bushes. Hence nobody went there, and not going there actually was the conservation practice that has saved this spring till today. This is how they ensured clean drinking water. No government municipality have reached these geographies till today. The same Devithan today in the popularly used scientific parlance is watershed or catchment. However, the invoking of gods and goddesses were only a deterrent, the term used in nuclear arsenals proliferations, to inject both fear and respect for the unknowns, and the deterrent was costless. In the hindsight, it was an age-old wisdom that led to voluntary, costless deterrence and conservation practice. So what we call watershed management today has been actually a crucial element of everyday social, religious practices in the mountain region. What a beautiful combination of spiritualism, science, and education. Devithan was spiritualism, not to disturb the origin of strong water, right? And not to disturb origin of spring water was science, and telling us the children about such practice and make us abide by the same was education and sustainability practice. Our grandparents and communities did so well without studying botany, physics, geology, and environmental sciences, and without seeing any state-led drinking water development agents. They were so well versed with watershed management and in the understanding of how nature works and what it demands from us to give communities back something priceless. This is a traditional wisdom which touched every member of the community and was respected by the entire community. This means we have to revise those frittered away organic institutions and recall and restore this frontier knowledge base back to larger communities and the governmental machineries. FFS is poised to really discuss these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We can listen to Professor Lama for the whole day. I mean, it's so amazing stuff he talks about. And I think he touched about all the themes we are going to talk about. And as we see, the painting today by Shankpariyat is a sort of a representation of the Chautari in Pokhara that has been lost. As he said, there are so many things that have been lost and we look at. So we have our final speaker in the opening plenary, our advisory, Nepal Economic Forum advisory board member, Mahendra Shrestha, who is also the chair of Himalayan Everest Insurance. And at Nepal Economic Forum and Himalaya Future Forum, we try to look at the intersection of private sector with what is happening on climate change, mitigation, adaptation. And he's going to talk a bit about insurance and the world that is unfolding around disasters, insurance, and Himalaya Future Forum.
Thank you, Sujit. Thank you, Sujit. Namaste. Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends from around the Himalayan region and beyond. We have already heard this morning two thoughtful and inspiring perspectives on the future of the Himalayan region. From Her Excellency Veronique Lorenzo and from Professor Mahendra Lama. Each in their own way has helped us better understand the complexity of the issues before us, as well as the possibilities ahead. I would like to add, disaster. I would like to add a third perspective, one that comes from the ground level where climate risk meets daily life. I speak from the front lines of risk. As chairman of Himalayan Everest Insurance and as an advisory board member of Nepal Economic Forum, I see climate change not just as a theory or as a declaration, but as assets damaged, livelihoods disrupted, and recovery delayed. This is the lens that I bring this morning. For generations, disasters in the Himalayas, earthquakes, floods, landslides, glacial events were largely seen as acts of God. Climate change today has rewritten that story. Floods are no longer seasonal. They are sudden and urban. Landslides are no longer isolated. They are cascading. Glacial risks are no longer distant projections. They are fast approaching realities. Heat stress, extreme cold, drought, fire, and water scarcity are quietly compounding risks. What has changed most is not just frequency or intensity. What has changed is uncertainty. And uncertainty is the most corrosive risk for households, businesses, governments, as well as for insurers. Disasters today are no longer natural. Climate change blurs the line between natural and man-made disasters. A flood becomes a financial disaster when homes are uninsured, supply chains break, livelihoods disappear, migration accelerates. A landslide becomes a social disaster when informal settlements sit on unsafe slopes. Women and the poor bear the longest recovery. Rebuilding pushes families into generational debt. A climate shock becomes a development setback when scarce capital is diverted from growth to recovery. Disasters today are not just environmental events. They are economic shocks, social shocks, and financial shocks. Let me share a brief human moment with you. After a localized flood a few years ago, one small business owner told us, the water receded in 2 days, but it took 2 years for me to recover. Not because the damage was extraordinary, but because there was no financial buffer, no insurance, negligible external support, no safety net. What followed was predictable: borrowing at high interest, selling assets, disruptions of children's education, decisions that had nothing to do with the flood itself and everything to do with financial vulnerability. This is how climate events quietly become life-altering events. So, where does insurance fit into this reality? Insurance is often misunderstood. People think it is about compensation after loss. In reality, insurance is about confidence before loss. At its core, insurance answers one simple human fear. What happens if the unexpected happens? Will my family be protected? Will my business survive? Will I be able to recover? Those questions lie at the heart of insurance. That is why I summarize insurance in 4 simple words: protection against the unexpected. But here is another reality. In a climate-stressed Himalayan region, protection cannot remain static. It must evolve. We must recognize that the traditional model of insurance, built on stable patterns and predictable risk, is no longer sufficient. Climate change breaks those assumptions. Past data no longer reliably predicts future risk. Losses cluster instead of spreading. Extreme and unforeseen events increasingly strain the financial resilience of insurers themselves. So the real question is no longer, can insurance pay claims? The real question now is, can insurance help societies adapt? Can insurance act as a tool for climate resilience? My answer is yes, it can. But to do so, it must evolve. It must move upstream, not just downstream. Not only paying claims after disasters, but reducing risk before disasters. And that means changing how we think and how we act. First, from compensation to prevention. Premiums should reward safer construction, better land use, and resilient infrastructure. Second, from exclusion to inclusion. Microinsurance, parametric insurance, and community-based risk pools can protect farmers, informal workers, and smaller businesses. Third, from individual loss to systemic resilience. Insurance data can guide urban planning, infrastructure investment, and disaster preparedness. And finally, from national silos to regional cooperation. Climate risk does not respect borders. Neither should risk-sharing mechanisms. And this is where partnership really matters, because climate adaptation requires strong policy and climate finance requires international cooperation. But resilience at the household and enterprise level requires risk transfer. That is where insurance quietly does its work, often invisible, but absolutely essential. We must be clear, insurance cannot work in isolation. It requires sound regulation, climate-informed policy, public trust, and financial literacy. As we set the tone for this forum, my call to action is simple. Let policymakers see insurance not only as a financial product, but as risk infrastructure. Let insurers see climate change not as an uninsurable threat, but as a call to innovate. Let development partners integrate insurance into adaptation and resilience planning. Let this region lead, not follow, in designing Himalayan-specific solutions. The Himalayas have taught us humility. They remind us that human ambition must respect natural limits. They also remind us of resilience, of communities that rebuild, adapt, and endure. Insurance at its best is a quiet partner in that resilience. Not dramatic, not visible, but present when everything else fails. In an age of climate uncertainty, insurance is no longer optional. It is protection against the unexpected. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mahendra. And as we live in the Himalayas, we have to manage around unexpected disaster, the fall of the stage, I think. So what we are going to do is to adapt the program a bit so that we can just fix this. So we break for about 25 minutes. We'll come back here at 11 o'clock. Sorry, Vinija and the team for about for the next session. So there's tea, coffee, we're getting ready. So we'll just get this fixed and we'll come back here at 11 for the next session. Thank you very much.